Cerberus narrations. Because who needs sleep anyway?
I'm 22, female, and live in London, and I have done for 4 years. I was coming home from a gig one Wednesday night. It was probably around 11:30, and had just made my switch to my final tube line of the night. It was fairly busy. I'd say probably around 10 or so people on the same carriage as me. I sit down on the flip-out seats nearest the door. As I've just been to a gig, I'm a little tipsy, but definitely not drunk. I'm very cautious of my surroundings. There's a couple of girls sat opposite me, and then a smallish man. Everyone looks fairly normal. The man gets up and flips out the seat next to me and sits down. Now, to put me into some context, I'm a 5'8" competitive weightlifter, and this evening I was wearing all black with a leather jacket and heavy boots. If someone was going to attack anyone, I would be a fair challenge. So, when this little dude sits down next to me, I'm like, okay. Bit weird that he moved from the more comfortable seats to the shitty flip-out ones. I quickly glance over him. He doesn't look crazy. He doesn't smell of anything. He doesn't look high. And he's dressed fairly well. But he sits there, completely angled towards me, like he's turned as far in my direction as he can. I can feel his gaze boring a hole into the side of my head. I have my headphones in, and I just look straight ahead. So then he starts twitching, like someone with Tourette's stifling a tick. So I'm genuinely put at ease for a little while. However, with the twitching, he starts biting his hand. And again, I'm like, just a tick thing. But then, he just sinks his teeth in. Flesh, blood, and everything. He loosens his hold on his hand, and then twitches, and bites down again. So, naturally, I think to myself, I'm gonna get the fuck off this sealed underground container. So, I get off at the next stop. The stop I actually need to get off at is the one a couple after this one. I walk off the platform as if I'm leaving, so he'd think I was leaving. Because I was on the Victoria line, I just assumed another tube would be along in the next couple of minutes. However, it wasn't, and I didn't want to miss the last train home. So I go to another way onto the platform and get back on the same train a few cars down. Now, when I got off the first car, the creepy guy looked at me super weirdly. Kind of longingly. I can't even place the kind of look it was really. It just freaked me out. So, we get to the next stop, and I see this guy walking down the platform. Now at 11:40 PM on a Wednesday night, when you're alone, you barrel down the platform to the exit as quickly as you can move. Nobody really wants to hang about down there. So when I see this creepy guy just ambling down the platform at the next stop, it tells me something is off. He's walking, looking around, looking dejected. Then he clocks me. It becomes painfully apparent to him that I'd moved down the train to get away from him. Luckily, the doors had just closed. He makes eye contact with me and starts shrieking and banging on the closed doors, blood from his bitten hand smearing everywhere as the train pulled away. That sight has rattled me, and has continued to do so months afterwards. Before I begin, I am going to say that I am a 19-year-old man and working a full-time job. I have since moved out of the place that this incident occurred in. What happened took place when I was about 6 years old. I lived in a decent neighbourhood. We did have the occasional creepy person that would walk or bike by. We also had some apartment buildings, where the people living there were heavy into drugs, but didn't bother anyone. They were nice people to talk to, and frequently mentioned they were into that stuff. They never bothered me, so I didn't care. Now, enough with the background. The house I lived in at that point was a very decent size. My dad also built a garage, a huge garage. Now, this is where what's happened. The garage was huge. It had enough space for 3 vehicles and rafters on the ceilings for storage of seasonal stuff, Halloween, Christmas, etc. This took place in December. I live in Atlantic Canada, and in Atlantic Canada, we get some pretty nasty snowstorms and blizzards. On a day in December, I was being a little kid in the snow, and my dad was working in the garage on one of his car projects. He had gotten thirsty and went in the house to get a drink. He came back out and asked if I had gone into the garage. I asked why, and he said that there's footprints in the snow leading into the garage that he didn't think were there. I said no, and we both thought nothing of it. That evening, my dad and I went to bed early. My mum works late, and came home late that night, and saw some of my toys that were in the rafters stored away, now on the garage floor. She thought nothing of it, moved them, and parked the vehicle in the garage, closed the garage door, went into the house, and watched some TV before going to bed. Now, my dad wakes up at 4 AM every morning to be to work for 5 AM. The garage door was opened when my dad woke up, so naturally he was angry, wakes everyone up, and goes out to the garage. When he comes back in, he's freaking out about a lot of very expensive equipment being missing. We called the cops. The outside lights were flicked on, and we saw those same mysterious footprints that led to the garage earlier, now leading into the backyard and into the forestry behind my house. The cops searched the garage, and my mum brought up the toys falling from the rafters. The cops asked to borrow a ladder, and went up to check. They found a gun, a meat cleaver, 3 condoms, 2 of which were used, assuming he had masturbated into them. I did not sleep for a week. I was terrified. They caught the guy 2 weeks later, trying to sell all of my dad's equipment at a pawn shop. He confessed to everything. He said he broke into other houses on our street. He also stated he watched our house for a whole month, to learn of all our routine so he wouldn't get caught. He had the weapons in case he did. He said he jerked off into the condoms when he saw my mum. He is currently serving a 15-year prison sentence. I don't want to know what would have happened if my mum, dad, or I had saw him.